For a lot of golfers, their bad scores on the golf course are really ramped up by the big miss. One shot that costs them a couple of shots. And that big miss is often penalty shots. So avoiding penalty shots when you next play golf is a massive part of improving your scores coming down. And probably the worst penalty shot is the out of bounds tee shot. Hitting a ball out of bounds, you lose stroke and distance. So if I hit this ball out of bounds, I'm then coming back to the tee to hit my third. So it feels like a two-shot penalty. So if we could avoid hitting the ball out of bounds, that would be really good. Now let's imagine a situation where I'm hitting the ball up here through these two gaps of the trees. Tree on the right-hand side here, and then tree on the left-hand side. There's a big yellow pole in the middle. That's going to be my intended target line. Now let's picture a situation where to that right-hand tree is an out-of-bounds fence. Out of bounds running tight from the teeing ground all the way up to that tree. And for a lot of golfers, when they see out of bounds to the right, instinct says, I'm going to move away from it. So they back off and they back off and they back off and they move right over to this side of the teeing ground. And they're as far back over this way as they can be. But then if you consider the angle that that golfer's then hitting towards, they're aiming slightly more towards the out of bounds area with that tee shot. The angle they're hitting to the centre is actually aiming them slightly more towards the out of bounds. So I'm going to advocate that if the out of bounds fence is tight to the right, I'm actually going to go and stand as close to it as I possibly can. So I pick my tee peg up and I might move all the way to this side of the teeing ground as far as I can to this side. And then from this side of the teeing ground, I'm actually nearer to the out of bounds fence, which feels a bit scary, but I have the ability now to aim further away from the out of bounds fence. So aiming from the out of bounds fence towards the centre, I'm actually aiming away from the out of bounds. So if I could stand on this side of the teeing ground and hit back towards the middle, I can stop the ball going out of bounds by hitting to the middle with a little draw shape, and that stops the ball going out of town. Whereas from this side of the teeing ground, which for a lot of golfers feels more sensible, I'm struggling because I'm hitting towards the out of bounds fence. So next time you're standing on the teeing ground and there's out of bounds present, just consider where the best place to tee up is. It's often not in the middle of the teeing ground, and it's often not away from the out of bounds. Go to the out of bounds side and hit back to the centre of the fairway, and hopefully you can reduce the times the ball goes out of bounds and gets that two-shot penalty.